Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of What's Hot with Sea of Tranquility, bringing you new album reviews all the damn time. Finally, I know we've been talking about doing this for a couple of weeks. Finally got my hands on the 2 CD set, the brand new remix of Gentlegiant's live album from 1977, Playing the Fool. This is now called the complete live experience of Playing the Fool, and I'll explain why that is. So this is the kind of hard digibook 2-disc edition. This is available on vinyl. It's available on CD plus Blu-ray with the Dolby Atmos mixes and all that sort of thing. I just was able to get the double disc set for now, and I'm quite happy with this, and I've listened to it a few times, so I'm ready to talk about it. So for those of you who maybe are not aware, Gentlegiant did release their one official live album in 1977 called Playing the Fool, which was the tour for the album Interview, right? And what they did was they took recordings from a host of shows throughout Europe that year, Dusseldorf, Paris, Brussels, and Munich, and that recordings from those dates were put together to create the original live album. So if you have various other versions of Playing the Fool, so I've got here the DRT 35th Anniversary Edition, which came out a number of years ago. What year was this? 2005. So this is 20 years old already. This basically was a remaster of the original album, but apparently the album was kind of pieced together, not really fully representing the actual track listing as the band would perform them on a nightly basis. So it's kind of like almost like a hodgepodge, plus some tracks. They played a few songs from the Interview album. Most of those were left off of the original live album. And like I said, everything was kind of mixed around to fit the format of vinyl back in the day and whatnot. So now we fast forward all these years later, right, to the brand new mix. And the new mix put together, so Dan Bornemark, who is the kind of the head of the Gentlegiant fan club and has close ties with the band and a big-time supporter of the music of Gentlegiant, was able to work with the band to get a hold of the original master tapes of not only the original album, but of the performances that the live album was culled from. And what he wanted to do was not only remix the recordings, but to also present this new live album, this new reimagining of Playing the Fool, exactly as you would have experienced it if you were there in the audience for any of these shows on this particular tour. And that meaning the set list, the track listing, the sequencing would be exactly the same as it happened on any night during that tour. So that's kind of I'm going to preface it there, and I'm going to stop right there, and we're going to show off. First of all, let's take a look at the packaging here. This is released on the a la carte label, right? That's Gentlegiant's label. Very nicely packaged, I might say. So in the beginning here, lots of live photography. You've got both discs kind of housed in here in the front in these little sleeves, protected sleeves, and then we've got loads and loads of cool stuff here. So you've got a nice essay talking about the tour, going into great detail. I didn't know this. So there were, right around that time, maybe a little bit before, when Gentlegiant were considering releasing a live album, they actually were thinking about it as early on during the Power and the Glory tour era, right? But they just kind of never got around to it. All sorts of live albums were getting big. It was really with Frampton Comes Alive, with the success of that they're like, all right, we really need to jump on this bandwagon right now and also release a live album, because that's what bands and artists were doing, right, during that time, especially in the rock world. But prior to them releasing this, there were actually 4 bootleg live albums released. If you're a fan of Gentlegiant, you've heard of these, right? These have been floating around for ages. I even have a few of them on CD. And those would be, actually 3 of them, Playing the Fool, A Stake in the Heart, Playing the Fool in Wonderland, and Amongst the Darkers. Right, I have Amongst the Darkers over there, and I believe I have one of these other ones here as well. So, because I've been a collector of Gentlegiant bootleg CDs for many, 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 many years. And So yeah, so the band like didn't even know that these things were out there. So, but that, as was the case in the '70s, bootleg albums were popping up left and right. So here we have some commentary from the band about this time period, about the whole process of figuring out how to put a live album together. And like I said, it turns out of all those concerts that the recordings were kind of culled from, the majority were taken from the October 5th performance in Paris. That seemed to be like kind of like the best performance. There was also one of the gigs, I believe was at Dusseldorf, might have been, where Kerry Meniere had all sorts of issues with his keyboards, and the band had to go into a little bit of last minute improv while he's working things out, and that actually turned into the whole Sweet Georgia Brown breakdown in Brussels, which we now know from here, that kind of little jig that Gary Green and Ray Shulman kind of went into. So really interesting stories behind the scenes here of kind of what went on during this. And like I said, this is a pretty lengthy article here, and then lots of cool photography from the tour. And then in the back, you've got a cool little mini kind of like poster fold-out thing. Nice if you held it up straight there, Pete. There we go. So you got that. Just kind of neat. And on the other side. Okay, so pretty cool stuff. So let's talk about the band, right? So, of course, this is, whether you call it the classic lineup or not, right? Because this Phil Shulman, the third brother of the Shulmans, had left the band by this point in time, but this is also this is with John Weathers on drums. So to me, this is kind of like the classic lineup of the band. Derek Shulman on vocals, alto sax, Descent recorder, bass and percussion. Ray Shulman, bass, violin, acoustic guitar, Descent recorder, trumpet, vocals and percussion. Kerry Meniere, all keyboards, cello, vibes, tenor recorder, vocals and percussion. Gary Green, electric, acoustic, and 12-string guitars, alto and Descent recorders, vocals and percussion. And John Weathers, drums, vibes, tambourine, vocals and percussion. So yeah, they all kind of played everything, and at times during the set list, they would kind of go change instruments and all. Very cool band. Nobody was doing this sort of thing back then, right? So, so some credits here. Playing the Fool, a Gentlegiant production recorded on Natural, so minimal, overdubs and things like that, on their European tour, September through October 1976. Paul Northfield, the original engineer, assisted by Trevor Peter and Fraser at the Maison Rouge Mobile, and Ken Thomas in London. The live mix, David Zammit, and the complete live experience, now this new version, mixed and produced by Dan Bordemark, co-mixed and mastered by Hakan Fredriksson, liner notes by Alan Kinsman. So let's go over the original live recording. This is the original track listing. Just the same, along with Proclamation, okay, obviously from Freehand and Power and the Glory from Dusseldorf. Then On Reflection from the Freehand album from Dusseldorf, and that was September 23rd, 1976. Over on side 2 of the original vinyl, you had excerpts from Octopus, which included The Boys in the Band, Raconteur Troubadour, Acquiring the Taste, Knots, Little Organ Piece, and The Advent of Panurge. Again, also all those tracks from Octopus, as well as a little bit from Acquiring the Taste. That was taken from Paris, France, October 5th, 1976. Funny Ways from the original Gentlegiant debut album, that was recorded in Munich, September 25th, 1976. Over on the third side of the vinyl, we've got all from Paris. We've got The Runaway and Experience, both taken from In a Glass House from Paris, again, October 5th. Also from that same show, So Sincere, a song from Power and the Glory. And then on side 4, you got 2 tracks from Brussels, one from Paris, Freehand, title track to that album from Brussels, October 7th, 76. The Sweet Georgia Brown, little impromptu thing, also from that same show. And then Peel the Paint and I Lost My Head, a medley of those 2 tracks together, taken from the Paris show, October 5th. And that is the original album, right? So the reissue in the 35th edition, basically that it's exactly the same. There's really no change there. So with this, they have given you a re-representation of what the track listing was when you would go see them live. But in order to do so, they had to change and use different recordings from those shows other than the one I just mentioned in a couple of instances. And I'll tell you exactly, oh God, I should have bookmarked it, but they had to reuse excerpts from Octopus, The Runaway with Experience, So Sincere, and Peel the Paint, I Lost My Head. They had to take the recordings from one of the other shows and drop them in here. So essentially, this live album now is a little bit different from the one we all know because, like I mentioned, there are a few tracks that are taken from other shows that were in that little set that they did in Europe that were not on the original release. But as they explain in the booklet here, the quality of the recordings were so similar from night to night, that's how good this band was, that you may or may not be able to tell the difference, right? But because of the way that they utilized the original master tapes and based on what was available, they had to make some changes. So what Dan was able to do is go grab original master recordings from these other shows, remix them, and drop them into Playing the Fool live set. So again, you have the entire, because they really wanted to go in and remix it, right? But because of some limitations on what was available, they had to go utilize other source material. So you now have, so in other words, you probably should not go get rid of any of your original copies of Playing the Fool, because this is kind of like it's a little bit different, because some of the source material is taken from different sources, obviously from different nights. But it sounds amazing. He's done a really, really great job of trying to get the feel of being in the crowd, hearing all this going around you. So there is, and I thought the original recording was fantastic, by the way. So this is just a different presentation. It's really, really good. And you really hear all the little nuances during things like Funny Ways and On Reflection, where there are all these vocal things going on, and hearing the songs that were left off is just really, really cool too. So you got the title track, The Interview, is back in the set list here. I love the title track, The Interview. It's great. Fantastic to have it here. It's also very cool. You got Timing is in here, along with Ray's amazing violin solo. They were using some technology back during this tour. So you hear like Ray would play stuff on the violin and you hear it kind of like bouncing off the walls, right? You hear it on this kind of delay. And it's just very, very cool sounding. It probably would have been amazing to hear it there in the venue, right? So very, very cool to have that back in here. Also, all the little back and forth dialogue between Derek and the audience, the band introductions and all of that's left in. So really, this is like being there, seeing and, well, not seeing, obviously, hearing the exact performance from the introduction all the way to the end, hearing all the little banter in between each song, introductions, the tracks that were left off, everything, and it sounds spectacular. You hear all the little keyboard bits from Kerry, all the intricate guitar stuff, like Ray's bass is nice and high in the mix. Ray was such a great bass player, right? Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. So I would say this is not a replacement for other versions of Playing the Fool. I think this is your complementary piece to Playing the Fool. And I think any hardcore fan of Gentle Giant is going to want this, is going to need this, and will really enjoy this because, again, it gives you a remixed version of the one we already know, but at the same time, it's also a couple of the tracks are taken from different sources. So now you get a chance to hear Playing the Fool from the same places, but for some of these songs, they're from different places, if that makes any sense at all, right? I think you know what I'm getting at. So very, very cool stuff. I got to give this a 5 out of 5 star. This is, A, I've always loved this live album. B, I think this is a very, very cool new presentation of it. It's slightly different, and it probably sounds even better. So that's my review. 5 out of 5 star for Playing the Fool. Amazing, amazing live album from Gentle Giant, one of the greatest prog bands of all time, and you got to have it in your collection if you're a fan. So, and like I said, there's various versions out there, so just pick the one that you want. If you got the big, amazing home theater system, you probably want the 2-disc with Blu-ray for your home theater system, so you can listen to the Atmos recordings and all that kind of stuff. So there's lots of different mixes on there, and very, very cool. But yeah, that's my review. This is on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube all together, all the damn time. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and click on that notification bell so you get alert of all of our content as a post. And please do hit the like button before you leave. Also, down below, we got the links to our Ko-Fi page for channel donations, our merch page, our Cameo page, and the Sea of Tranquility membership options. Thank you in advance for all your support. It's greatly appreciated, and we'll see you soon here with more stuff. I am Pete Pardo. Thanks again. Take care. Bye-bye.